Time to check in with Carmi Levy. He's our CTV tech analyst. So, Carmi, a couple of different stories in the news, but when you see a headline like this, I think perhaps this one should go first. Social media and online video firms are conducting, quote, vast surveillance, unquote, on users. Okay. Now, I know this is a U.S. story, right? Something the U.S. Federal Trade Commission is looking into. How does this apply to us? And is this just ubiquitous?
It is. And, even though it originates from the U.S., those practices don't stop at the border. So what the FTC is reporting on affects Canadians as well. And they took a closer look at how companies like Facebook, WhatsApp, of course, both owned by Meta, YouTube, Amazon, Snapchat, TikTok, and X, among others, as well as Discord and Reddit, how they collect data from their users. And they looked at them over a 2-year period. And they determined that they're collecting huge amounts of data, which I don't think comes as a surprise. I think we suspected this, but this is probably the most comprehensive study of this activity so far. And what's especially disturbing is that they're saying that we as consumers don't have control over that data, that in many cases they don't make it easy for us to stop that collection from happening. We have no visibility into where that data goes afterward, who it's being shared with, what it's being used for. And they also illustrated that they're not just collecting data directly, they're also looking at our activities and then inferring from those activities conclusions about us. So, for example, if we mention in our activity that maybe we bought a house, then they start collecting data and they start sort of pulling it all together, looking at us through the lens of a homeowner. So, in other words, we never consented to this. I didn't consent to anyone analyzing me to that degree. Yet this is what seems to be happening, all in the name of marketing. It is a confirmation of what we suspected for many years, and quite frankly, it's even further and more shocking than what we might have anticipated. It's one of those wake up, smell the coffee moments, because big tech, not our friend.
Yeah, and funny you say. We all knew, of course, this was happening. It was the words "vast" that really kind of made my eyes light up here, right? The fact that it's as I said, it's everywhere, and there's nothing we can basically do about it, right?
There is. I mean, right now, there aren't any comprehensive laws on the books in the U.S. or in Canada that would stop these companies from doing that. And that's what the FTC is calling for. They're saying, well, now that we have the smoking gun, we're calling on lawmakers in the U.S., and I think this extends beyond the U.S. as well. Canadian lawmakers should be watching this too. And we need better laws to protect you and me so that when we sign up for services like this, we aren't giving away the farm when it comes to data, that we have more control over it, that we can say no to certain things but still be able to use the services as we always have. It's not a black and white either or thing. There can be shades of gray, but they haven't made it easy for you and I to make that decision. We can't go into the settings and tweak them to the degree that we should. The FTC is saying something's got to give.
Let me move on to this next story. This is funny because I played a piece just the other day on the show where this was an AI, I guess it was a chatbot, calling hotels to make a reservation and then, after posing the initial question, trying to actually negotiate for a lower price with the person on the other end of the phone. I thought that was pretty amazing, even though it got called out on one of them. But this is now, we talk about AI and the jobs it might be taking, right? When you call a restaurant, who are you talking with potentially here?
Increasingly, you might be talking to an AI bot. There's the National Restaurant Association. They had a huge show in Las Vegas earlier this year. It's called Bodega, and the big buzz at the show was these virtual hostess solutions. They go by the name of Resto Host or Maître d' AI or Slang, and basically what they do is they replace a human on the phone with an AI chatbot, a voice-activated chatbot. So when you call a restaurant and you want to make a reservation or you want to ask, well, one of the sort of simple questions that everybody asks the host: what time are you open till? Do you have an allergy-free menu? Can I have a seat by the window? Things like that. They're repetitive questions, and hostesses hate answering them, and it takes them away from doing all the other stuff. They're saying this is one of the low-hanging fruit in the restaurant industry, that AI can take over and free these people from the tyranny of answering the phone and answering the same questions all the time, and let them do something more value-added, like serve people who are actually there. It sounds good on paper, but we know full well every time there's a new disruptive technology, a lot of companies, and restaurants included, will say we're not using it to get rid of jobs. We want to enhance the jobs that are already in place. And then what do? They actually get rid of jobs. So interesting to see here, but this is already in use in hundreds of restaurants across the U.S. We know full well that fast food restaurants like Wendy's are piloting similar technology in their drive-throughs. It's kind of only a matter of time before, when you get on the phone, you're going to have to ask yourself the question, am I speaking to an actual host or am I speaking to a bot?
We live in a wonderful world. All right, let me move on and talk about another story I saw that made me sit back and wonder. And we have talked about nuclear here in the province of Quebec, as a matter of fact, and whether it has a future. Meantime, 3 Mile Island, the biggest nuclear disaster in American history. Now Microsoft is reaching a deal to use their nuclear power for its AI. What's this about?
So, whenever you, for example, ask ChatGPT a question, what happens is the request goes to a data center far away. It's kind of like a Google search. There's a computer in that data center, a server, that handles the request and then spits back the answer to you. AI requires a huge amount of compute resources. You need a lot of computers and a lot of data centers, and that takes a lot of power. And so companies like Microsoft and Google and OpenAI and Amazon and all the other companies rushing to roll out AI services, they're scrambling to find sources of power for all of these. And Microsoft has signed a deal with the company that operates the 3 Mile Island plant. Only one of the reactors was damaged in the original accident, so Unit 2 was melted down, and that's never going to work again. But Unit 1 was fully undamaged, and it's been sitting quiet for years. It worked for a while, then they shut it down. Microsoft sees it as a great source of inexpensive, clean, huge amounts of energy to power its AI services. And Microsoft, of course, very big player in AI. They partnered with OpenAI for their ChatGPT and related tools. So basically, this sets a precedent because the entire industry, Microsoft is looking for power north of the border as well. They're working with Brookfield Asset Management to sign up huge amounts of energy, and pretty much every other major company, including Alphabet and Amazon, they're also signing deals for clean energy, and in some cases it's nuclear. The fact that it's 3 Mile Island, though, if you're old enough, and I certainly am, you remember this, and it's an eye-opening moment. It's like, wow, well, I guess nuclear is the answer, and certainly renewables like nuclear, like solar, like wind power, those are also huge targets because all of these companies also have carbon neutral mandates over the next number of years. They can't just be buying coal-powered power. They are also looking for clean power, and that's also part of sort of what they're aiming for here.
Kind of the future, I mean, for AI, for all the power that, is required, as you outlined here, this seems to be maybe something, whoever thought about this for nuclear reactors, right? But maybe this is the future.
Exactly. It's almost like the past is becoming the future. And certainly as the grid comes under increased strain from artificial intelligence apps that require huge amounts of power, electric vehicles that have to be recharged every night, we are going to have to get creative in terms of how we provide that juice. And certainly if you have a bunch of nuclear power plants that have been sitting idle across the landscape for years, they don't produce emissions. They don't produce any carbon emissions at all. And it's a proven, and aside from 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl, fairly safe form of energy production. So it could be the answer to our AI-driven technology future. And Microsoft is leading the way.
There you go. Carmi, as always, thanks so much.
Great being with you, Aaron. Thanks.